A little something about the archetype of family today. To real life, welcome to Real Life and Archetypes. My name is Marina, and I wanted to talk about the archetype of the family today briefly, because this is something very personal to me. So personal, that is very much related to the family archetype. There is an archetype which is who we are, coming from a family, coming from a biography. Now, the nature of this archetype is that, think about a family that is supposed to give the right conditions for a human being to grow. Now, there's always something lacking in this archetype, and that's what I want to say. It's completely natural. Think of the family as this environment that is going to give you a head start. But at some point, growing up means that you're going to take over the process of continuity of your own personal development. So we're going to need conditions that are going to enable us to develop and grow outside of the family system, because that's the reality of our existence, okay? Unless we have a very strong family system ourselves. But in any case, we will deal with dynamics outside of family that are going to trigger the same kind of patterns that we start to develop in family. Think about family in your biography, that something started to grow. This part of you that started to grow within the family history, whether it's good, bad, in between, it doesn't matter. Something started to grow, and you need to continue to grow that. That is your job as a human being that develops, that matures, and that grows up. The family is not going to give you the complete being that you're supposed to be. That's the hero. The hero generates an urge to be who you really want to be, all that you can be, and it generates challenges because of your own desires to be someone. And it's going to generate conflict, even with regard to the family archetype. That is the nature of the hero archetype, because it's a concept of extreme individuality. It's a part of you that needs to become who you're really meant to be, that is not defined by anybody else, whether it's family, society, relationships, other people in relationships, or in social structures. That is the whole conflict of the hero. It's because we are born into the world, and the world already exists, and the world has a lot of things already established for us, the kind of person that we're supposed to be, where we're supposed to go, career, profession, or marriage, whatever it is. The world already exists. From that perspective, the hero generates a challenge and a conflict because of the desires that we have to be fulfilled. Now, we're born and we're supposed to be quite unconscious. We just don't know what is going on. And that's the whole point of all of the archetypes, that we're going to really wake up to the true meaning of this fulfillment of our lives. But the family archetype gives us a history, and it's going to give us patterns of behavior that we're going to need to take over. We're going to need to continue this process. We have to become our own parents, and then also, or nurturers. It's the most appropriate word, even though it sounds a little weird. But then we're also going to be that kind of person for other people if we want to have or create a supportive system, which we need. We need a home, we need a human family, we need a human system. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to evolve, to develop. But that very system is going to generate conflict because, again, we have this individuality. Whether we realize or not, it is there. That's the issue, that we may not realize it. So the system of the family will give you a head start. Something starts to grow, whether it's because you've had good or bad conditions, or a combination, which is, the most normal way of things. Something started to grow, and you need to continue to develop that. Now, the birth chart gives you more information about that. But this archetype, everybody knows. the family, the personal self. It all relates to your personal development because it speaks to who you are as a very personal human being. So that relates to the hero, which wants to be super hyper individual. Okay, it's you, it's nothing else. It's not what somebody else has in store for you. It's not about following the script of others. So that creates a huge conflict. Now, the family ideally is supposed to give you, all of the right conditions so that you feel safe inside of yourself, comfortable in your own skin, so that you can address whatever is happening in the outside world. The ideal situation rarely happens. And one of the things that I'm very concerned about with regard to this archetype is that very often I feel that, especially in therapy, we sort of teach people to just remain in a state of complaining or feeling overwhelmed by the shortcomings of our own biography. So feeling that your family has shortcomings or your upbringing has made you vulnerable and prone to self-sabotage, that you feel that you're not capable of addressing the challenges of life, is completely natural. In fact, it's part of the archetype. It's supposed to be that way. Again, your family history, your biography is going to give you a head start. At some point, you need to take over and you need to continue the process of taking care of yourself and growing up. And this is why we always need a human system. If we don't pay attention to this personal world that we have inside, that we need to really nurture, because it has very, very big potential. The potential of this personal self is that it's going to be more creative and therefore more special. Now, emotions get a bad rap in the world because, you're supposed to not be emotional. There's a difference between negative emotions that are going to create more conflict in your life and more of a sense of being stuck or not being able or capable of addressing the challenges of the real world. And there's a difference between that and really knowing yourself and what you feel and how you feel and act on that so that you continue to grow and evolve. And that's very important. Why? Because evolution is about, getting a better and greater experience as a human being. And if we don't respond to the call to address all of the challenges of life, we're going to make our experience smaller, particularly in this archetype of the family. Remember that you're a small being and the family circumstances are supposed to give you the right conditions so that you go from small to big, right? So that's the image. And if at some point you need to take over, it's because you're always supposed to grow. That's the beauty of life, actually. Otherwise, we just remain in the same place. And that makes life quite boring, and you can see that. So I think it's, for me, with archetypes, one of the biggest principles that I have, because I do have principles in how I want to teach that, is that there really is a universal human experience. Archetypes address that, and they tell you of what is natural. We can call that natural in the sense that it's okay. It's okay. Now, sometimes your experience with regard to your growing up, right, is painful. For most people, it's going to be painful, and then for some, it's going to be more, okay? Everybody has a different personal story. But to really address your personal experience and grow from that is going to generate a very individual creative expression. And this relates to another archetype, which is the greatest self. That's the Leo archetype in the Zodiac. And this one that I've been addressing, by the way, the family archetype, it's Cancer in the Zodiac. So we all have all of the archetypes, at least a little bit. And then for some, we're going to have more of an archetype or others. So the sun which is what everybody knows in astrology. You have the sun in a sign. This is just one thing, okay? You can have a lot of an archetype. You don't know it because you don't have your chart. So the sun is just one tiny point in the entirety of the archetype. And I just want to say that because a lot of people will say, well, I don't have, I'm not a Taurus, I'm not this, I'm not. Well, you have a lot of that energy. So that's going to have a huge influence on you, and it's going to matter. The sun is a specific point. I will get into that in another video. But the question is, the family archetype. If we learn to understand archetypes, to understand that they have a function, which is what I always say, archetypes have a function. Well, the personal, so instead of thinking about emotions and, how emotions is about weeping, this is the bad rap that emotions have. Think about personal, that you personalize your existence. And because of that personalization, what is going to be generated by you is going to be much more unique, much more special, and much more true to, that main hero archetype, which is the one that is trying to have the greatest life experience. So in that sense, what I love to say is, just understand the function of archetypes. Everything has a function because every archetype has a function. And that's what I love to tell everybody. So thank you for watching. Until next time.